before that, I take privilege to introduce our eminent panelist, Mr. Srinivas. Then we have got Dr. Rakesh Premi, and we have got Dr.Abha Rishi with us. I will just give a brief introduction of all our panelists to all our viewers, and among the panelists also to know each other better. Mr. Srinivas, he is presently the Principal Consultant at NISG's Blockchain Center of Excellence. This is a government and NASSCOM owned organization. He is an author. He is also an alumni of IIT Chennai and IIT Bangalore. Dr. Rakesh Premi, he is a director at GHS-IMR. He is a visiting professor to IIM Shillong and IIM Lucknow. And he is also a recipient of many awards. Some of the awards I would like to mention here. He has received Uttam Excellence Award in 2019. Then he has been the recipient of 100 Most Influential Directors of India in the year 2016. He has received Excellence in Education Award by Times Group in 2015, and along with many other awards and recognition. We have here with us Dr.Abha Rishi. She is presently CEO of Atal Incubation Center at BIMTECH. She is also the chairperson of the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship Development at Birla Institute of Management Technology. We steer this webinar, and I love to ask the first question from Dr. Abha Rishi. Ma'am, the first question to you is that the blended learning is coined more often in today's learning envelope. And indeed, it is quite a useful tool for all the learners. I would request you to enlighten our viewers about the concept of blended learning as a whole. Dr. Abha.
Thank you, Ajay, and good evening to everybody who's listening to this particular webinar on blended learning. It's actually a very good initiative by ZOTALabs to pick up this particular instance of blended learning, because what's happening is with the income of COVID, which has like started from February, quite a few people and most of the education institutions have shifted from the traditional method of teaching to going in for either blended or hybrid type of learning, which is there. Now, many people use these two words interchangeably, but there is a subtle difference between both of them. So blended learning, when we talk about, is wherein you utilize lots of tools which are online to enhance the teaching which is done by an instructor. Now, this instructor could be taking the class online or offline. And you add on all those elements which make it into a blended and enhanced method of learning. Whereas in a hybrid method of learning, it's a slightly more nuanced kind of thing, and it's more customized. In blended, you're actually utilizing the same kind of tools and the same kind of methods for the entire class which is there. And there's a lot of peer-to-peer, within the classroom itself, there's a lot of learning which happens. So this classroom could itself be taken online or offline. So that's what blended learning is about. The curriculum, the syllabi remains almost similar to what is there in the traditional method of learning, but the way it is delivered has changed. So that's what is there. But frankly speaking, right now we are utilizing the old syllabi and the curriculum, but with the influx of so many tools, even the curriculum needs to change, because the students, when they are learning, there are so many methods and there are so many tools and simulations which can be utilized to talk about the same thing, but in a much more better and much more learnable fashion. So I hope I have given you that difference which is there when you talk about the traditional method, which is like you sit in a classroom, the teacher is there in front of you, he or she writes on the blackboard or a whiteboard, depending on the kind of technological levels within that school or classroom which is there. And you're there sitting along with your friends and talking and learning. Whereas when you talk about blended learning, you could be in the classroom or you could be sitting at your own place and learning from the instructor or the faculty who's there. And the faculty could also be using just simple online method like I'm talking to you, or he or she could also be using simulations, or he or she could be using other methodologies in which to teach you. So that's the difference which comes in when you talk about blended learning. And if you have college students in your place, or if you have school students, you'll be seeing what has been happening out there. So most of them have been taking classes online. So yeah.
So, ma'am, as I take this, blended learning and the hybrid learning, basically it is I guess it is something like a flexi model, and which can be, incorporated in the curriculum which is already there. And with that, we can understand the complex, the subjects, and, as we used to earlier also learn it. But since now we are using this blended learning, so we can have something like, a flexi model in which we can have a digital learning as well as the classroom learning. And this can actually be more incorporated into the complex aspects like physics, maths, and chemistry, and all those things, where we need some practical demonstration kind of a thing.
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant by saying simulations. So
Yes,
even when you must have been undergoing your training for going in for flights and all, you must have undergone simulation training.
yes, ma'am.
Similarly, on a much more simpler and more basic level, most of the problems which are there in physics, mathematics, and science, or even management, can actually be created in such a manner that the students feel that they are living through that particular experiment or case or anything like that. So it becomes much more enhanced. The learning becomes much more enhanced than just reading about it and then talking about it.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. I think I'll take the course from Dr. Abha to Mr. Srinivas. And Mr. Srinivas has been quite, important person in, the emerging technologies, the blockchain and other aspects. And he has been dealing with the government and other colleges and universities also on this aspect. So my question to you, Mr. Srinivas, is that, like, resource constraints in the universities and colleges which are there already, which are like, what we used to do it. And as Abha ma'am has also put in that we have to blend the online resources also to have an effective use of it. So my question to you is that, how about using the emerging technologies like the machine language and deep learning and all those aspects to gauge the pre-existing knowledge and provide personalized tutoring about a personalized person, like analyzing the performance, which can probably dramatically improve the learning outcome. So, Mr. Srinivas, what is your take on this aspect?
Yeah, correct. So this is an interesting application of AI and ML, which is well being exploited now. This all started about, if I remember, about 7 to 8 years back. People started, using AI and ML for adapting the learning for depending on the students' needs, requirements, capabilities, etc. I think now it is going to be very well prevalent because if you see NASCOM, which is our parent company, has just launched this platform called Future Skills. So Future Skills is actually a platform for all the IT and ITES professionals, wherein they have across all the various areas of IT and ITES, they've identified different domains, and each of the domains they have mapped the job responsibilities, types of jobs, responsibilities, skills required, etc. What level of competency is required for what set of job groupings, skill groupings required for various executing different types of job roles. And then correspondingly, they have invited all the developers of online, and multimedia educational platforms and programs to upload them on the NASSCOM Future Skills platform. And the students, depending on their current status and their taste, their requirement, their expectations, what type of job they want to do, and what is the current level of skills, etc., the program automatically matches and recommends to them the different best suited programs that are available from across the platform. So it uses an AI and ML enabled engine to do that. So this is the way the future is going to evolve, and the same level. So this will help the learners to quickly zero in on depending on their passion area and interest area, and the area of what they want to do, job, etc., career paths. They can immediately know what are the best suited programs, and they can choose them, and they can they can do them, and they can gain the level of expertise that is required, which is also well accepted by the industry. So this is a beautiful platform which is developed by consultations of NASSCOM with all the IT and ITS organizations, doing a lot of research from the various types of job portals as to what type of jobs are posted, where the demand is there, what are the salary levels, etc., and what are the expectations of students. And then they have zeroed in on the set of job roles and the skill requirements. So then they have done a lot of survey and research on the types of courses available, and they map the both. And then they come out with this AI-enabled platform. So this is still evolving more and more as the more the data that is available, and the more the population go on to this platform, it will get more and more fine-tuned and become better and better. So this is, I think you have rightly pointed to the direction in which this blended learning, or there are different combinations, as Madam Abha has told. So there are different ways in which people understand blended learning. While blended learning actually, traditionally it meant something different, wherein teacher uses the aids, the multimedia aids and the simulations to significantly enhance the effectiveness of the tutoring. So what we are seeing is, the sort of things what you have asked about AI/ML enhanced learning is more suitable for, say, asynchronous sort of learning, wherein people can browse from set of courses available as per the requirements, and then choose and then do the specializations. So there may not be that much involvement of a teacher per se, who is responsible for his learning on a one-to-one basis or one-to-many basis. So that's what I feel. So more than the blended learning, it is more suitable for more. We can foresee more of application of AI/ML in asynchronous learning or online delivery of pre-recorded educational programs.
So basically, Mr. Srinivasan, as I take your discussion on this particular question, it is something like we or universities and colleges, they have to like select an appropriate digital tool which are like AI or ML based, and as per their needs, they have to look for an like engaging program that offers them a proper scaffolding to struggling students and users of adopting learning principles to deliver the contents.
Correct. Yeah.
And so this will be better for advancement of the student per se also, and this will be quite personalized for their requirements also.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, that also, in fact, traditionally AI/ML has been used for delivering the type of the type of training or teaching to the students, depending on where they currently stand For example, if they find
Yes.
that the student is, very basic level and he's not able to crack difficult questions, the AML engine will identify, then what type of learning path he should have. And then correspondingly, he will be led through that type of learning path, which is more suitable for, his current status. So that is the way traditionally AML has been used for the past 7 or 8 years. But now we are seeing more and more AML being used for, letting the students, vast number of students across the country, because millions and millions of students now have to reskill themselves or upskill themselves. So they can log into these platforms like Future Skills and then choose the type of programs that are, that the AML engine guides them to, and then they can do that. So ML has got multiple applications. So everything in future, people say that whatever you are doing today, everywhere you will have X plus, AI and ML. So it has got significant applications. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for enlightening us about the emerging technologies and their use into today's requirement.
Yes.
So
I'll
Ajay,
now,
can I add on to what Mr. Srinivas has just said?
yes,
He
ma'am.
talked about it from the creator's point of view. So
Yes.
from a user's point of view, I would say that it actually helps in creating a roadmap. So even a brilliant student can use it, and even a person who is a laggard can use it, because
Yes.
this kind of a blended learning helps them overcome their weaknesses. So it's really, I think it's brilliant that it has come into usage. It was something which has been there in the wings for quite some time, but this particular situation has pushed it into the forefront.
Yes.
So the time has come. So this was already there. It was not that it was not there. It was already there. The only thing that the utilization was very less.
Yes.
But now with this kind of platforms which have come up, and it's actually made learning inclusive. So no longer is that only the brilliant persons are like highlighted and taken everywhere. It's become much more inclusive for everybody.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Correct.
I'll now take the next question to Dr. Rakesh Premi. We have already, gone through one or two questions where Mr. Srinivasan and Dr. Abha, they have given their views about hybrid learning, blended learning, and how to use the AI and ML into that, aspect. So now, since you are associated with the education field for very, very long time, and presently you are holding a very important position in one of the most premier institute in India, I would just like to ask your views about that. How do we incorporate all these things into a classroom experience with whatever we have got, the AI/ML aspects into it, and the other online, contents to engage the learners along with what we have been teaching in the campus. Dr. Rakesh.
Yeah, Ajay ji, you are asking this question to a person who's basically comes from an era which used to be called as walk, talk, and chalk.
Yes.
Fine. And at the fag end of my career, I suddenly see these artificial intelligence and machine learning stuff, which is very exciting. And at the same time, it is changing the face of the education. And what we read in the research papers and other magazines, that in very near future, because whatever changes we saw in COVID in 1 week, they were predicted in next 15 years. I mean, that is so amazing. So what changes we were expecting in education, what I'm going to say might be very soon, you will see. And that is that the role of a teacher in education will be of mentor, because educationists now fear there's a robot in the class who's teaching or who's delivering the lecture, and by the dilation of the pupil eyelids and pupils and the expression on your face, and with thermal scanning and knowing the taste and preferences of each and every students, he can even quote customized examples. I mean, he can do a far better job than what a teacher can do, what a kind of a 4-tier mentor-mentee program would do. So whether you like it or you don't, integration of technology in education is inevitable and it will come and it should come. Now, question is, the change is so sudden that how do you incorporate into the current system where just maybe around 2 or 3 years back, today we are talking on this platform and we are discussing big things. Now think of that person who's affiliated to a state government university. He lives in a village and he does not even have a telephone proper connectivity of WhatsApp or something like that. Talking to him of all these things would be very unfair. So this has to be equally dispersed and distributed. The education I'm talking about. When we are talking of premier institution, fine. I mean, the best institutions can do it very easily. To remain a premium institution, they will install each and everything, and students will study. But are we really taking this advantage to the people who really need it? Well, number one, what you asked, it is going to be a big challenge because number one, faculty challenge. I mean, fortunately, I happen to be quite a tech-savvy person. But I see even people 10 years younger to me, they are very resistant to change. I mean, they would discard their technology. No, this is all bullshit. How can you teach? Well, on the other side, you say Jack Welch and other people saying that management is all about people management. Where do the machines come in? Fine. So there are so many views, counter views. It is getting very, very tough even to replace a projector with a smart board, because telling faculty that you'll have to attend training session of maybe 15 hours to operate a smart board, he will make faces. Because I'm facing this. We installed 5-6 steps. Now when smart board could create such a problem, now you are telling him, and I'm very sure you will keep telling him and updating him, no, now you have to learn this software, now you have to learn this. Now there is a new technology has come in, and companies like yours, and there are so many companies in the world, they will keep on inventing and bringing in new technologies, certainly for the betterment of the society and the students. But getting this change in the classroom level, convincing the faculties, and delivering the advantages to the students, believe me, it still remains a big task, which is easier said than done. Because if you just walk down the interiors of maybe UP or Rajasthan, I belong to Rajasthan basically, I know how tough it is. It's very, very tough. So what you asked, I would like to sum it up that bringing these technologies, artificial intelligence, machine learning and everything into the classroom, it still remains a challenge, but we have no other option except to just do it. That's my view.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Rakesh. In our earlier webinars, we had discussed this particular issue about the digital divide, and also we had had a discussion about what are the how to improve the capabilities of the tutors as such, or the faculty as such,
Yes.
to use these digital tools.
Yeah.
So what is my take on this particular aspect is that, especially for the universities and the colleges who are embracing this kind of a blended learning, is that first they have to identify what subjects, it may be a specific subject, or it may be a course, the entire course itself, and that identification has to be done along with the teachers to identify what course curriculum we want to have kind of a blended learning kind of a digital tool, and then we should choose the appropriate digital tool based on the needs which have emerged out of this particular research along with the students and the faculty members.
Absolutely.
And then look for some engaging program, because there are loads of programs floating around on the internet. It may be a free programs, it may be a paid programs and all those things. And then finally you have found a tool to understand that particular subject. And thereafter you make them understand how to use it, where to use it, how to blend it.
Yeah.
And then supervise and help the students, and also instruct teachers to oversee the students' progress as we go the along the way of blended learning. And probably then having a feedback loop, we will, have a proper blend and will make a kind of a, proper like mix of both, where we can say, okay, this is what is the need of that particular university or that particular subject, or a combination of whatever university teachers and the students we have. So probably this, like approach, as to my understanding, can go in a long way of adopting this blended learning in our today's mode.
Has to have a strategic approach,
Yes, yes,
that
sir.
over a period of maybe 2 years, 1 year, how we will do it. Then
Yes,
it is,
yes.
then it is good.
We have to
no doubt-
strategize that particular
And
aspect.
there is no doubt about the fact that these technologies are useful. They are very good. They will enhance learning. You produce better and employable graduates, and there is no doubt about it.
I think our
Dr.
next
Rakesh,
question.
I think I'll beg to differ, and I'll say that probably society in many ways, especially the ones at the tier 1 and the metros, these students have reached a kind of inflection point.
Yeah.
Most of these guys are tech savvy, and if I may use Hindi a little bit, I'll say like, मुंह पे खून लगा दिया है आपने technology use करके, and
And
they've
all
got the
these
taste of
all
how-
these students are the digital natives.
absolutely.
Yes.
So
We are
it's
the immigrant of the digital technology. They are the digital natives. They understand everything.
correct. So what is required is for the instructors, the faculty, they have to adapt. And as you very well know, I mean, it's the rule of the jungle. I mean, the best possible who can adapt fast, they are the ones who are going to survive. So learning of technologies is no longer a choice. It has to be mandatory. And especially like getting used to utilization of these technologies is very important, because not only does it enhance the teaching, it also enhances the learning. Because it's easy to track the metrics of a student with technology. I mean, just imagine the number of man hours which are wasted by trying to do it manually. By doing it digitally, it's like so fast. And plus, you know like what exactly is the roadmap that a student requires. So not only is the learning, but also both sides. I mean, it gets enhanced. So it's an inflection point that we have reached. And
Absolutely correct, Dr. Abha. I mean, I completely agree with what you're saying. But please understand one thing, that this is applicable in our scenario, maybe in institution like us or BIMTECH or maybe some IITs, IIMs, NITs. But prior to this assignment, I was heading Leeds Beckett University, England's campus as director. So shuttling between Leeds, Beckett, England, and India, and we used to bring students for volunteering. Volunteering is a compulsory subject in European universities, where you have to go to interiors and work and get attached to the society and very lower class, lower income group people. If you want to make sure that this technology and the advantages reach, which is a huge number, huge number. I mean, I would say something like 90% there. Fine.
Inclusiveness.
Yes. So it is so tough for this 10% good institution, tier 1 metros. We can talk everything. They will embrace technology. It's fashionable to have a iPhone and say that I have got this gadget and that gadget. It's okay. I'm talking the the benefit at large, and there is a huge market for a company like Ajay's. I would say that there has to be a strategy to upgrade and make these people aware, because they are the potential customers of the future. But nobody is looking at them. Why? I think the reason is very simple, because we are not even able to feed the customer just now in the tier 1 or 2 cities. But there is a chunk of students, prospects sitting untouched, unchanged in the market, and they will take not less than 10 years from now. Believe me, I have worked so much in the interiors. I mean, whether I liked it or not, by force I had to go there. So as a part of my job. So I see, I see extremes at two sides. On one side, I'm sitting in England and seeing a different curriculum, different pedagogy, and all these tools. And on one side, I mean, people don't even know the high end of a simple mobile, or they don't even have electricity properly. So, the world is very strange, very strange. So I'm telling you the reality.
Yes.
I'm telling you the reality.
It's correct what you're saying, but what I'm also saying is that it's necessary that this kind of technology should reach them also. See,
Yes.
I have also been working on both ends of this extreme. So even in the villages, there is this hunger. So what some of our people have done is that they have put in those kind of systems out there. Like they have given some iPads and other things, which one iPad per classroom is what has been given to them. So what happens is that the learning still happens. So it's not that they are not getting this, but then yes, the market is huge. I mean, there's a lot which needs to be done. There's a lot which needs to be supported from the infrastructure side.
I remember
that keep technology away from them.
No, we should not. We should not. Rather, my worry is that it should reach them, but it is not. I mean, you are saying iPad, and I remember Akhilesh government gave laptop which did not even last for 5 minutes in their hands.
Right.
Did not last even 5 minutes in their hands. It was sold the moment they came out. People picked it up.
Well, I mean, that's a completely different dimension.
And as a typical researcher, I have worked on so many topics, and these things intrigue me. Okay, why, we are having a polarization, extremely literate and educated people, posh people, and on the other hand, absolutely dumb and, blind people. So what is making this polarization?
You are absolutely right, Dr. Rakesh.
Yeah.
We had one of the webinar, I think the last webinar, one of our panelists was from US. And he said, he quoted an example of, in Mumbai, somebody left a laptop on the ground without any instructions. And one of the, child, he picked it up and he used without any instructions. So actually we need to have the technology in hand, like Abha ma'am has also told, and you also told, there is a digital device. So if we give them the digital experience, these children, because all the children are digital natives, even in the villages also, they know how to use the mobile and other aspects. The moment we give them digital technology, they'll be there in the forefront.
Yeah.
So I take this particular question because now I'm seeing there is a chain of what we are talking. So like we are talking that in India this like technology utilization is quite less. So I have read in one of the researches, they have shown that in South Asian countries, it may be Philippines and other places, that they are currently leading in utilizing the hybrid or this combination of the learning for enhanced learning experience. But in India, because of the digital device, because of the the government's like priorities in other aspects or other sectors, we are utilizing quite less as compared to the South Asian countries.
Very less.
So if we have to like go from here to use this blended learning experience, and which is we have seen all the panelists have said this is a fantastic a flexi model. So how Indian education system can embrace this and this particular technology for all of us?
So I see it is going to be, immersed in a very natural way. It will evolve, I think that is how it is going to work, because thanks to the government push also, thanks to the competitive edge we need to lend to our institution, and the need for producing high-end MBAs and very high salary packages, we have to have assistance of all these tools. So I think this is imperative now. This is going to happen. There is no issue. Maybe I slightly deviated from the topic because my focus was on the people who are deprived of all these things. But yes, plenty of market, plenty of scope, plenty of takers, and by the time I think the back people started using the technology, the front end will evolve and come out with new technologies. Fortunately, I must mention here also Mr. Som Vittal, the founder and ex-president of NASSCOM. He was here with us around 2 or maybe 2-3 years back. So, we had a lot of discussion. I think he's one person who's responsible for all the internet and whatever we are talking in India today, Mr. Mittal. He happens to be the alumni of IIT Kanpur also. So I think it's going to happen, sir. It is inevitable.
Thank you, Dr. Rakesh. Now I'll take my next question to Mr. Srinivasan. And I would like to ask one thing that, because now we have identified that this blended learning is required for, most of us in India, and that's how we can better off. Now, how do we incorporate the system of blended learning to provide a better overall learning experience? You being a technology person also, you been into education system also. So probably you can, give your views on this aspect.
Yeah. So actually, we got the first taste of blended learning, I think, in about 15 years back when companies like Educom, they launched a lot of multimedia enabled education and a lot of content they developed and offered it to a lot of schools, converted a lot of schools into digital schools, which was then used by a lot of all these teachers to enhance the learning experience for the students. And there used to be different categorization of the schools. Only elite schools used to get access to this sort of content, and the students used to benefit from there. And whoever I think definitely experience that could really learn a lot much faster, because when you see with all your senses and with the way they explain it with the multimedia, the way they create their videos, the learning experience will be far better. But as Dr.Abha madam was telling, this COVID situation actually is now pushing this particular revolution to each and every school and every, whether it's government or private, or whether they are KG or first standard, up to the highest level of education. So now government has announced the launch of number of channels, and all the state governments have been asked by government to start working on multimedia enabled education for all the students from right from the first standard. So we are in fact working with Karnataka government already, and a number of governments are already working with the various consultants as to see and trying to see how they can leverage internet, they can leverage TV channels. They're going to launch a lot more TV channels as well. And they're going to create a lot of multimedia content, and they're talking to various content providers who have been in this business for long, but so far they have not been finding much acceptance. Suddenly they have come into limelight. So government is encouraging all these people who are sitting on a lot of content to come forward and help in propagating this particular blended learning approach to all the students across. So this is the way it started as panelists, the co-panelists have already identified. Now the movement has started. Now everybody has to fall in line, and government also is pushing right from the first standard onwards across all the states. So this is going to become a common norm. So thanks to this COVID, whatever has not happened in the past 15 years, it started happening in the past 4 months. So we hope that this trend will continue. And all the teachers, now we are in discussion with in Karnataka government, wherein they have asked us to give a program of training all the teachers so that by October, all the teachers will be through about 10 days of training as to how to leverage this blended approach to train the students better by leveraging technology and multimedia enabled education. So this is what is required actually to push them. When we let things to happen on their own pace and let whoever is getting exposure, let them have it, or whoever is having ability to afford, let them afford it, things won't happen. But here, once the government steps in and it realizes the importance of this, when they push it through each and every school across the country and all the states, things will happen. So that is something great. And if you see other countries, for example, if you see Singapore, even when students get into preschool, first thing they are taught is, all the things that they are taught with the help of technology. For example, they are taught, the concept of sequencing. so that they learn it on the computer systems, etc. There are hardly 4 years or 3 years. You can see a lot of videos in the YouTube how in Singapore toddlers learn by leveraging technology, so that every student right from the birth, the moment they step into the school, they have to go through technology-enabled education. So that is totally embedded into their entire way of teaching right from early childhood. So now I think with government recognizing the importance of this in a big way, and then they are forcing the entire system to fall in line to enhance the quality of education by leveraging multimedia and also training all the teachers. Budgets are being provided to all the state governments to train the all the teachers. This is a compulsory program every teacher in the country has to go through. So I think a lot of action is going to happen. The scale at which, if anything happens in India, the scale at which it happens will be humongous. We are with tens of crores of students getting into the system every year. So the sort of market opportunities that are going to be there for all these various players in this developing content and delivering, etc., is also going to be very, very huge. So we hope the government steps up the gas and then accelerates this process and follows it through.
Mr. Srinivasan, I would like to ask you one thing. Like we have seen that people have adopted the online like contents, and teachers are also not now quite comfortable. And but the only aspect which is like worrying me is about the evaluation process. Can we use these emerging technologies to sort out the evaluation process where we can't give exam in the offline mode? We have to give exam on the online mode. But how the evaluation can happen with by using these emerging technologies?
Yeah, so obviously when you write exam in the pen, paper, the types of questions what you can ask are comprehensive questions, open-ended questions, etc. is much more versatile and better. And in terms of when you do practicals, etc., definitely you need to have. It's better to have real life lab scenario. But traditional competitive exams or number of this. Wherever tutorial and where the definitely mathematics or anything is more involved, where or alphabet, whether you have to you have a multiple choice, etc., can be used. In such cases, definitely online mode is very much possible, because now they can assess based on with the help of AI and ML, they can easily judge whether the student is identify the student accurately and ensure that there is nothing wrong happening in terms of impersonation or any other issue, because a lot of this the multinational companies, when they are conducting courses, for example Microsoft, if you see, Microsoft has got hundreds of courses on Azure platform. So all these different courses, they do only online exams. And they accurately assess the presence of the student, and there is no scope for anything, any impersonation happening. This is because they use all emerging technologies, AI and ML technology.
Like we take online exam for
voice
TOEFL
recognition.
also. IELTS, TOEFL and all. Yeah.
So they use all this facial recognition, and then presence. They identify the presence of the student by multiple enhanced tools with the help of AML techniques. So not just the normal photograph, still photograph, but all these things are already being put to use to ensure foolproof delivery of exams and conduct of them.
We have got one question which has been asked by the viewers from Abha ma'am. That is like acceptability to the blended learning would be a challenge for the students or the faculties. But I think we answered partly this particular question, that it'll be more of a challenge for the teachers and faculty and less the challenge with the students. But I think we need to have little more elaboration on this aspect.
See, when you talk about learning, the acceptability is not about the learning. It's the acceptability is about the credibility of what you have learned. So that's why, like, why are certain brand names associated with better kind of learning and why the others are not? So it's a credibility which is attached to the kind of learning that you have. So the acceptability is not a problem at all. It's the credibility which is going to be of an issue. Like if everybody is going to offer online courses and hybrid learning and blended learning and other things, the effectiveness of it is going to be challenged. So that is where the last question which was being talked about, the evaluation part of it, is very important. So when you talk about the evaluation part of it, the Western countries have got a lot of systems in place, like when you go for the GMAT or the GRE or the TOEFL or even the SATs which are there, all these actually look at the customized evaluation of your learning which is there. So your scores depend on the kind of questions that you have attempted, and the machine utilizing AI and ML actually throws in the kind of things which, if you're able to answer it, it takes you to a more difficult question. If you're not able to answer that difficult question, it brings you back to a more basic question, which has got lesser marks on it. So similarly, that kind of customized evaluation can be created even in India. It's not rocket science. And even in rocket science, we can create it. So that kind of problem is again not going to be there. So acceptability is not an issue at all. I'm underlining that again and again. Even the proctoring which is done, that is when the students sit for the examination. I mean, just a few days ago, we had that online kind of examinations wherein we used facial recognition technologies. So the students had to have a photograph of theirs taken, and even the movement of the eyes could tell us whether the student is actually answering the question himself or herself, or are they trying to cheat from somewhere else. So all these things are possible. So the evaluation part of it is going to be very important for all of us, and especially to establish the credibility which is there for this kind of learning. Acceptability, I think, is going to be universally accepted that this kind of learning is going to come, is going to stay there. So have I answered your question now?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Now, I have got one question for Dr. Rakesh. That is that how can we solve issues for the rural markets or interior places, and what steps should be taken to develop students in these areas? We have, discussed about the tier 1 and tier 2 cities, but what about the, the rural areas, as you have also discussed on that particular aspect? How do we develop students in these areas? What do you suggest, sir?
Yeah, I think coming back to basics again, train the teachers is the answer. I think all these primary and secondary, higher secondary school teachers, we need to have them in a particular cohort and then start training them, make them aware and introduce them these technologies, and they can bring back these technologies, install those gadgets and those gadgets over there in those schools, which is again a Herculean task. And then these people can, deliver this knowledge, or, then everything can be done. But here I would like to again mention, because I can't resist telling you things which I have seen in my own life. I'm telling you the real life story, because in one party I was introduced by one of my press colleagues to another gentleman. He said, sir, this man is, my family is today united because of this guy, and I'm so thankful to him. So I really thought this gentleman is, very grateful to this guy. And I said, I mean, why you are saying what is Kanpur? But because of this gentleman who happens to be some officer in that big area, she goes once in 3-4 months, and then she manages the attendance and everything. That is how it works in UP. So I was just wondering, if the teacher is not at all going to the school and sitting at home, how do you expect some talented stuff coming out of villages and rural? So we can discuss anything here, Ajay. We can talk of anything. We are talking about this 10% mass, but somebody asked me this question, that how we can take this technology to rural side. Well, it's a big challenge, but the only way We have to monitor their presence, their attendance in these schools, make them sincere, train them, evaluate them that whether they have really learned it or not, and make sure that they are supervised and they're delivered to the right set of people in the right circumstances. So it's a big challenge. But see, I'm very hopeful because the digital native is what you are talking about. This particular generation is extremely intelligent. These boys, I have my grandson, I have seen people being born 20 years back, 30 years back. There is a change in IQ, there is a change in aptitude. These babies are simply wonderful. So their power to adopt new things is fantastic. So I'm very hopeful that these little kids, whether they are in rural area or they are here, they will do an exceptional job. And thanks to this automation also, what the prediction says that the entire world, 20% population will be on job and 80% will be either listening to music and playing, because the productivity will be taken care,
Yes.
or the wealth will be taken care by these 20%.
Yes.
So I think all universities should turn to now sports and music universities rather than, or say well-being university, like the way Harvard has started a well-being school. And these are the, I think, courses of future. So rural thing will happen. Training the teachers, I think, is the need of the hours. Creating awareness and developing some kind of a sincerity in them. I think that's it.
Thank you, Dr. Rakesh.
So, Ajay, if I may add on one small thing, what I think is it's not just, it's more about information dissemination. If the children in the rural areas get to know that if you have access to a smartphone, you have access to an entire world of learning. There are so many free courses from so many top-class universities that all that they need is access to a smartphone. So if they have that access, they have access to learning. So what is needed to be given across is that information that this is what you need, this is all that you need. And I don't think that's going to be a very difficult job. So even if the teachers may be not really that sincere, or maybe not up to the mark, but if the students have alternate methods of learning, they will learn. Those who want to learn.
I think
the smartphone market is, barely we are catering to 30% of the entire market. So still 70% of the entire mobile telephony market, they don't even have phones. Let's not talk about the information giving to them or they're being curious. They don't even have the gadget. So
what is required is just one smart telephone in an entire village, and the entire village has access to it. That's what I'm saying. So,
I think you just solved the problem. You are being very optimistic.
Yeah, actually, we have to have a lot of
optimism.
Actually, we have to have a lot of advocacy groups to take this kind of a lead, so that every child even in the rural areas also should have access and should know how to use it. So our next question is to Mr. Srinivas. Sir, there is a question that what all data points can emerging technologies capture while evaluating the students on online platforms? What are the data points?
So I think some of them we already, I think, discussed. Abha Madam has also, talked about it, about the ability to judge, depending on the answers the student is giving. The further questions also can be served, right? So that is that's one. So the answers, that the answers, type of answers is able to address. That is one data point. And of course, to judge his presence, the different types of data points about, about his the movement and, the biometrics or the, voice, speech, number of these things could also be used to judge the presence of the student. And then I don't know with respect to what the person, the boy asked this question, if you can elaborate on that, because data is, I mean, the amount of data what you can talk about, the data points could be huge, but with respect to, in relevant to what, or with reference to what we need to, whether it is for judging the presence or serving the questions or any other reference area that we need to, we need to know while preparing the student for, to become an expert in a particular subject. Then we assess what is his current level by serving him some questionnaire or some questions and finding his performance in various topics, his relative performance in various streams or various domains with respect to the standard that is expected or the average standard that other people are in terms of percentile, etc. That is another point, a data point which we can have while assessing or training the students. So depending on the objective, we need to identify the KPIs, and then corresponding data points have to be collected or analyzed or monitored.
I think this is with reference to the evaluation from the faculty perspective and how to gauge the performance. So for that, probably the data points they wanted to ask.
So evaluation from the faculty, I mean, with respect to AI, I mean, you can his performance with respect to any exam corresponding to the percentiles, with respect to other people of similar, who are in the same topic or class. So that is whatever traditional methods can also be applied here in terms of judging the performance, right? So how AI, I mean, I'm not able to really relate. Maybe somebody else on the panel could address this question.
No, that's all. Thank you. And there are no more questions as of now. So I would like to thank all panelists for giving their valuable time and discussing a very important topic of blended learning. And my special thanks to Aptron, who are our partner in conducting these webinars. And Aptron, they are the leaders in training segment for graduates for aligning our efforts for conducting these webinars also. And I would request the viewers to download the app of ZOTALabs, which will facilitate them for acquiring and safekeeping their certificates of participation. All of the viewers can also keep their other valuable educational certificates in this particular wallet in the app. So please visit zotalabs.com to know more about our products in the field of education and also about the emerging technologies. We shall be hosting a series of webinars from time to time, mostly on Saturdays or Sundays, and we'll keep you updated with the subjects and our eminent speakers and panelists. I want to assure that you will always find these webinars very interactive and connecting with the issues of stakeholders in the field of education in India. On behalf of Team ZOTALabs, Team Aptron, and all the panelists, I wish all of you a very bright future in your chosen careers and fields. Lastly, something mesmerizing for you all till we again meet on our next webinar. If you want to be more powerful in life, educate yourself. It is just that simple. Thank you all. Thank you for attending the webinar.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.